So if we can find communities where there's high tourism or warehousing or some type of high, industry that the workforce is there and the demand is there, but there's just such a lack of affordable housing, that's going to be like key, because if you don't really have that level of workforce, it's not going to be a great fit.
Are you frustrated watching your hard-earned money ride the knee-jerking Wall Street roller coaster? Are you looking to diversify into alternate investments and set them on autopilot to achieve financial freedom? It's time to learn the ways of the wealthy. It's time to think outside the stocks with your host, Madhvi Jain, an immigrant from India and ex-IT professional who will bring you industry experts to illustrate a passive and holistic financial approach to build not just passive income, but also your generational wealth. Madhvi is on a mission to change the financial trajectory of one family at a time and 1,000 more to go. Are you going to be part of this vision? And now, without further ado, here is the host of Think Outside the Stocks, Madhvi Jain.
Hey, welcome back to another episode with Think Outside the Stocks. I am your host, Madhvi Jain, and today we have a very, very interesting conversation with a very, very interesting human being with us. We are going to talk about a problem that we had during COVID time. You remember all those hotels which got empty, and solving that problem with another problem, which is the affordability of housing. But before we go ahead, I do want to mention that this is information and education purpose only. Whatever we are providing as an education on this podcast, please be sure to do your own due diligence on it. Consult your tax professionals, your lawyers, so that you can implement this strategy in your financial structure. So imagine you living for a week in a hotel room, then living for a month, living for a year, or think about people living that as a home. That's what our guest today, Andrea Foley, is doing with hotel conversions. Andrea, welcome to Think Outside the Stocks. So glad to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming. We've been meaning to do it for a while, so I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. And we keep on meeting at different conferences. And I typically like to talk very interesting things about my guest. So the first interesting fact I'm going to tell my guest about you, Andrea, is you have infectious energy. You are you're forced to reckon with, and you are a problem solver. So, I talked about the little bit problem that you tried to solve, but you're a problem solver and a go-getter. So, that is really, really what attracts me to you. The second interesting fact about you, you grew up with dad who was actually in construction. That's so interesting. So I can't, Andrea, get that image out of my mind with, a little girl walking around the construction site and wearing the little yellow hat and probably some tools like a hammer or something, right? It's incredible that you got that experience, right? And the third thing, interesting fact about her is that she actually, in her realm of problem solving, with a company, a niche, a diaper company. And Andrea, we would like to talk about that. And you actually successfully exited this business. So kudos, congratulations on that, though it's coming late. So let's jump right in. Tell us about you, tell us about your family, what defines Andrea, and then we'll start going into your story a little bit before we start talking about, oh my God, the hotel conversions. I am so dying to know about that.
Yeah, a little bit about me. Like you said, I was a business owner for 17 years, and I have been married for 18 years, and I have 3 little kids, and we work with them, something that I know you'll appreciate, we call it Raise Millionaires. And so we have a little podcast where we teach them what we think is the millionaire mindset, things that every kid should know, financial literacy, gratitude mindset things, so that when they grow up, they'll just make better, more educated decisions with their future. So we're very passionate about financial literacy.
That is amazing. You're building a generational wealth by not only just the wealth, but the financial wealth, but the knowledge wealth. Amazing. Kudos for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to for generational wealth, is if you just give your kids the money, they're not really going to thrive. You got to teach them how to do what you've done with maybe a little less struggle.
Yeah. I love that. So let's go a little bit into your story, in your childhood. Tell us what you remember of it. And, did you actually work on these sites? Did you actually help your dad about it?
Yeah, so he has been an entrepreneur himself since
Mm-hmm.
he was 25. And my parents are very young. So I was already 5 years old when my dad started his company. And
Mm-hmm.
so every summer, he would take me, probably starting at the age of about 10 until I was maybe 14, 15. I would go with him and work on the houses and help side and help frame and yep, carry that hammer around like you said. So, and then of course he was always working on our own projects at home. So like aside from siding and framing and I just really got to learn everything there is to know about home improvement, construction, from electrical to drywall to plumbing with everything that he did. When I was 12, we actually built our own home.
You
So,
did.
yeah, so I helped with that as well. So, kind of, ground up everything construction. So, and he still lives in that house today. So,
Amazing, amazing. So
yeah.
25 looks like a magic number to start a business, huh, in your family.
Yeah, yeah, I followed directly in his footsteps for that. So,
Absolutely. So that's the entrepreneurship bug is in your DNA, looks like. And I would love
yeah.
to know what your kids are up to, right? If they also have that bug.
They do, yeah, especially my middle. She's 11 and like she's already done this whole vendor fair where we made candles and she sold them. And then my girls every year. So my mom is actually an entrepreneur as well and she owns a store, a retail store. And my girls every year will make these hot cocoa cones
Uh-huh.
where they make, hot chocolate and marshmallows and peppermint
Oh,
candies and decorate them all up and put a little cute tag on it. Very, we got the idea from Pinterest and they sell them at my mom's store. And last year they made about $400 over the holiday season. So
oh,
we
that's
we got to get on that
crazy.
actually. It's about time to start.
I know that there is a full-fledged business idea there. You need
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
get
so
some
they love
seed
it.
money up there.
Yeah, and they work hard and I just help them, but I don't do it for them. And then they have
Absolutely.
to pay for all the cost of goods sold and take that out of their profits. And
Both my kids are entrepreneurs, and my younger one, especially, even he said, looking at his sister, that I want to create a business too. And I'm not going to do anything for you. If you come up with the plan, if you do it. So I very well understand what you're saying, that they got to do it. We
yep,
got to support, not to do it for them.
yes,
So that's
yep,
fantastic. So with that, let's jump into what you had been doing. Let's talk about actually business, your business, the diaper business, right? How did you
yeah,
get that idea? And, I like how you're creatively, thinking all the time and
yeah.
solving a problem. What is the problem that you were trying to solve with it?
Well, I always wanted to own my own retail store because all through college, actually high school and college, and after I graduated, I managed retail. So I
Mm-hmm.
always wanted to open my own store. And finding out through other retail owners that there was a need for a cloth diaper service.
Mm-hmm.
At the time I lived in Des Moines, Iowa. So I did my research and with my $2,500 credit card limit and the support of my husband, I started a cloth diaper service. And
Uh-huh.
this was pre being a mom.
Right.
So
Wow.
I was washing poopy diapers for other people's
Oh
babies
my
before I was
gosh.
even a mom.
Uh-huh.
And then I just grew it and ended up quitting my job so that I could focus on it, be a work from home mom. 2 years in, I had my son. So then I
Right.
could stay home with him while I was running and growing the business and ended up buying the Omaha market
Mm-hmm.
during, I think he was 6 months old when we bought that and just kept
Mm-hmm.
growing and then ended up getting to fulfill my dream of opening my store when he was 2.5. So it took about 4 years of washing poopy diapers before we got to that level, but we got there.
Right.
So yeah. And then that's the business. It was a natural baby boutique.
I
We
see.
did end up selling off the diaper service, focusing on the boutique over
Mm-hmm.
the course of the years. And then we pivoted that business when kind of online shopping hit and all of
COVID.
my manufacturers started like selling direct through their own websites
Uh-huh.
and on Amazon and just the boom kind of hit and Babies R Us went bankrupt and Toys R Us went bankrupt. And
Mm.
instead of letting my business go bankrupt, I pivoted into kids consignment.
Okay.
So kind of still staying in that like natural focus as far as like reusing clothing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we grew that concept up from nothing after we pivoted and opened a second location, and we were going to franchise it. And then instead I found real estate in the meantime. And so then I offered my first franchisee the opportunity to purchase my corporate location because I really wanted to dive into the real estate more. So that's what happened.
Excellent. What a persistence. Thank you for sharing that. So did COVID impact your business at all, or what happened during
It
COVID?
did. I mean, 2009 was a great year. And then when COVID hit, we did have to close the store for about 8 weeks. And so my manager and I at the time, we got on Facebook and we created 4 Facebook Live selling videos. So
Okay.
these hour-long sales videos on our Facebook page every day. So we did 4 hours of live selling, and then we did another like 6 hours between prepping and then cleaning up after that sale and getting all the orders packed up and ready to go. And so we ended up doing about 60% of our business being completely closed. So we
Amazing.
hit about 60% of what we were normally doing,
Uh-huh.
even with our doors closed, just by doing that. So we were working harder
I
with,
know.
with COVID. Like we
But
were
you,
working harder with our store being closed than we
yeah.
were
But you
when it was
sustained,
open.
you sustained through that toughest time, right? That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, I didn't want to have to fire anybody. I didn't want to, like their
Imagine that.
livelihood depended on me. And
Yeah.
so we made it happen, and it was a lot of work. And then it probably took us 6 months to kind of recover the inventory because, our inventory came from people selling to us.
True.
Well, with being closed, we weren't getting any inventory in.
Yeah.
So once we did reopen, it was kind of this backlog of needing to get the store stocked back up. And that took a while. And then 2021, the sales were pretty much back to normal.
Now, I
Yeah.
consistently keep seeing that problem solver in you with
Yeah.
creative solutions and pivoting. And I think pivot was the number one thing I learned during COVID. I think there were a lot of, Tony Robbins, was biggest inspiration.
Oh,
That
yeah.
he just went virtual.
Yep.
These massive conferences that he had. So a pivot is really, really important. So with that, let's jump into what you're doing on today.
Yeah.
What made you think about hotel conversion and turning them into affordable living spaces? I mean, I'm looking at your business model that, you have these tiny places, and to even think about that, will even stay there,
Yeah.
as a home, right? These 400, 500 square feet, or probably even smaller places as an apartment complex, right? So how did you start this out of the box thinking?
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, probably 2 big things. So my mom owns a small hotel in Iowa. I mean, her people pretty much live there. She has probably half of her rooms. I think she only has 14 rooms. And I would say 7 of her people like live there permanently.
I see.
And it is a hotel room, so there's definitely a much larger population of people that do live in hotels or in very tiny apartments that people don't realize because that is their only way to be affordable. And sometimes living in a hotel is way more expensive than, finding an apartment. So sometimes it's people that maybe they're down on their luck as far as they don't have the credit, or they don't have the deposit
True.
for an apartment or things like that. So those are the people that will end up living in these, that stay as a hotel. So I think that was a piece of it. And then during COVID, there's this hotel here locally that closed, that shut down. And my husband and I were just talking, and we're like, man, like that is a really weird location for a hotel because it's surrounded by residential. And I'm like, that would make an amazing apartment.
Right.
It's great location in town. There's nothing around it that you would want to stay there as a hotel. There's no tourist attractions or anything like that. And so it just got us thinking. And then when we really wanted to find our first multifamily, buying a hotel, there's so much more affordable if you looked at, say, a per unit price
Right.
versus an existing stable multifamily.
Yeah.
So just like the value that we could get. So I'll give you an example. We got a multifamily property for, I think it was $800,000 and it was like 12 units. And then I find our first hotel we ended up buying and converting was 32 units for less.
Oh, really?
And when you run
Almost
the numbers
triple
of
the
what,
size.
Well, no, yeah, almost triple,
Yeah.
and the same price. So when you do convert it, the value is just so much higher. So for us, it's like, well, yeah, that doesn't seem hard. Let's do that. And
So
the
was it
really,
hard
yeah.
then?
I mean, we've done a bunch of flips and single family rental remodels and stuff
Hmm.
throughout our real estate career. So while I was running a business, and my husband's always had a great job. So we've always done that stuff on the side. And so when we bought this hotel, we're like, it's just like 32 little flips, but all together on the same property.
Right, right.
So that's kind of how we looked at it. And we just felt confident in our abilities to both anticipate the construction budget in
Hmm.
our underwriting and then doing the work if it were necessary and something happened.
Right.
We knew that we could, aside from like electrical and plumbing, anything licensed, aside from that, we could step in and we could lay floor and we could, hang drywall if it came down to it. So just knowing, being confident in our own abilities and making up for costs if it were necessary or
Right.
anything like that. That's why we jumped into it.
And then, I think when it comes to the hotel conversion, right, into residential, I'm just trying to imagine, most of these places don't even have a kitchenette, right? So
Right.
what is the process that you're actually going through when you are converting these rooms into
Yeah.
actually somebody's home? And what
Yeah.
is the most difficult part that the problem cannot be solved? And
Yeah.
what is the easiest part in this?
The most difficult part is upgrading the electrical
Mm-hmm.
to accommodate a kitchen.
Okay.
So it's not really the plumbing, adding a sink and things like that. It's really when you need a dedicated circuit for a fridge and for a microwave and for a cooktop,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of electrical that needs to be added
Right.
to these units in order to get it up to date. So a lot of times switching these from a hotel to a multifamily, it's called a change of use
Mm-hmm.
in the code.
I see.
So then you have to bring it up to code, up to today's code
I
in
see.
order to do that change of use. So that's really the biggest challenge, which could involve, and every municipality is different on how they interpret that code.
I see.
So, but it's going to usually require fire sprinkling
Mm-hmm.
or some type of fire suppression that you're going to need to upgrade the whole entire property to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the electrical is usually going to be a really big construction budget
Right.
item. So
Right.
those are the two biggest expenses out of the whole thing.
I see. Quite an odd problem. Would not imagine. I mean, it looks like the electric is already there, but yeah, it needs more power. It needs to support, more things.
All the
So I think that,
appliances.
yeah, that totally makes sense. And
Yeah.
especially if you're going through those, the use of code and approvals and inspections, again, the red tape or the process of getting those approvals, having people come down and from, the county or the city, especially during COVID, that could be challenging too, right? The timeline of it.
Yeah, luckily we started in 2021, so we kind of
That's good.
we were dealing with, the material delays, but not the
Right.
personnel delays.
That's cool. And I was actually, taking a look at one of those things, and you also mentioned that, having a dishwasher inside, that could become a challenge too. So let's talk more about that.
Yeah, so we don't add dishwashers into ours because, these are affordable units.
Right.
They're not meant to be luxury, class A, have all the amenities that you and I would want in an
Right.
apartment. They're meant to be almost, let's call it more of a survival apartment, until the next phase of life.
Right.
So a dishwasher, in-unit washer dryer, like things like that, those are luxuries that we take for granted.
We do.
That these units, not only can they not really support that, again, that'd be more electrical, more plumbing, which is fine, and then more of a cost to us to buy all the dishwashers, but then also the space.
Right.
So we need to fit a whole entire kitchen in a pretty small space, and a dishwasher takes up a little too much space as well. So these are 2-burner cooktops, a sink, maybe a convection oven, a microwave, and a refrigerator.
Yeah, it's pretty much a space for maybe a person or a couple. I'm sure not for families, it'll be really tough
You
to
wouldn't think so, but we've had a family of 4 live in one of our apartments before.
really.
So
Yeah.
one of our bigger ones, I'll say bigger, like it's 450 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you think about it, there's people that live in tiny homes that are like 200 square
Yeah,
feet
yeah. No,
with their
and
kids. So it's just a lifestyle choice,
absolutely.
or a necessity.
Thank you for sharing that. And so, what is the easiest part in this conversion?
I would say for me, knowing what it takes,
Right.
like finding the right hotels to convert,
I see.
is easy to me. I have a checklist that I go through and spend about an hour on each potential property.
Right.
And after I'm done with that, it's kind of like, yeah, this one would make a great apartment, or this one is not going to work.
So, what do you look for? Are you looking for the businesses around it? What is your kind of a buy box per se?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the market. That's a huge part of it. So, and by that, I mean, like, what is the industry there? Like,
Right.
what is driving the workforce?
Mm-hmm.
We have found that when there's a lot of tourism, there's a really low supply of affordable housing.
True.
So they spend all their money on the tourists and they don't think about the people that actually are supporting that tourism, which is all your, minimum wage employees, servers and bartenders and hospitality workers and
Right.
all those people. They don't make really great wages. And so what we've found is in tourism towns, they have to live outside of town quite a
Right.
ways
Mm-hmm.
to afford to even live, and then they have to drive.
Yeah.
So if we can find communities where there's high tourism or like warehousing or some type of high, industry, that the workforce is there and the demand is there, but there's just such a lack of affordable housing. And it's usually younger people, that maybe, like you said, it's a single person or it's a couple. Maybe they're both servers and just trying to, go to college, or they
Yeah.
just got out of
Yeah.
college, or, they're making their way. That's going to be like key, because if you don't really have that level of workforce, it's not going to be a great fit.
Yeah. No, that's true. I was at a conference in Hawaii actually just last weekend. And, I just kept looking at these places, the resorts, and I'm thinking that there are not too many apartment complexes here. So you're right. This workforce housing who's actually supporting, servicing this huge tourism industry, they get pushed out and they're like really further out. And I finally saw an apartment. I was like, okay, there is an apartment. But lo and behold, it was just an Airbnb. Every apartment unit was converted into Airbnb,
Right.
again supporting the tourism.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you are solving one problem, which is the problem of affordability, with another problem of these hotels not surviving through one of the tough times. I mean, of course, after COVID, there are some hotels which are boomed, but some hotels just buckled up and they
Yeah,
just
and we're looking
couldn't.
for those mom and pop hotels that maybe they don't have a flag on them.
Yeah,
They're not a Hilton, they're not a Marriott.
yeah.
They've been run for the last 40 years by a family, and they haven't done the upkeep that they've needed to do, which those flags will force hotel owners to do.
I
But when
see.
it's not flagged, then they don't have to. They kind of, sadly, I would say run it into the ground and
Yeah,
just kind of milk it for all it's worth, and then it's kind of done with its useful life. And so then that's
absolutely.
when we come in to bring it back to life.
Yeah. Another reason too, right? That, these mom and pop owners, their next generation, they don't want to take care of their business, right? So they,
Yeah,
it's a passing generation. They have gotten involved into something completely different. So there you go.
absolutely.
You're solving a third problem as
Right?
well.
I love triple wins.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And then it's a win-win for, the businesses who are coming out, people who are staying into it from the affordability point of view, the businesses, the hotels, which are, actually facing a lot of problems. And it's a win-win for your investors too, I'm sure.
Oh,
So tell
absolutely.
me, how many hotels have you converted so far? And are you focused in a specific area, or are you looking, basically all geographic locations?
Yeah, I mean, we've looked at a few in Florida, but we've definitely tried to focus our energy in the Midwest because that's where we live. And so it's a day's flight or drive to any of our properties, which
Right.
makes it easy to go do site visits and keep an eye on construction management and all of that during the project. So we are on our second one.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge with the market right now is construction lending.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
banks have definitely pulled back. And so we're not looking at future hotel conversions at the moment until the banking kind of
Settles down.
releases their clasp on on their
Yes,
funds.
yes,
So,
absolutely.
we're a little forced to slow down on this particular niche for the next probably 6 months.
Yeah,
And then we can start finding partners that are willing to, and by partners, I mean lending partners
right.
that are willing to open up their construction lending again. So
Yeah.
that's been our biggest challenge.
Yeah, and especially when you're converting, it's a massive construction project, right? So you don't
Yes,
have occupancy to get some
right.
of this, but the better loan products. So you kind of have to rely on those construction.
We
So there
do. Yeah,
is,
we can't go to agency, which
yeah,
would be amazing, but we can't.
yes, absolutely. So looks like another problem, and I would love to talk to you in few months. I'm sure that you will come up with another creative solution to
We'll
this
have to.
problem.
We'll figure it out.
Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that strategy, your investment thesis, and how you're actually, creating this massive value for,
Yeah,
different level of families coming in. So
yeah,
with that, I would like to go to the second section of my podcast show, where I
yeah,
just like to talk to my guest about their kind of an holistic approach to wealth management. And we were chatting a little bit before the show, and you got me really excited because believe me, when I meet so many people, thousands of people in conferences, and I always ask them that, what do you do as a holistic approach? Very few actually come up with that answer and, kind of
yeah,
those solutions, right? So let's talk about that,
yeah,
Andrea. I would love to know twofold approach. One is from the diversification point of view, outside of the stock market and outside of your niche, which is the
yeah,
real estate or hotel conversion that you're doing.
yeah.
How do you diversify your portfolio? And how do you do your wealth management? What are the kind of pillars that you have set in stone for that wealth management? And of course, you're doing this for educating kids as well. So let me ask you, Andrea, how do you and your family think
Yeah.
outside the stock?
Yeah, so we do not invest in the stock market at
Mm-hmm.
all. So,
Okay.
in order to preserve and grow our wealth for both ourselves and then 400 future generations from now, we use the infinite banking model.
Love that.
And yes, so we're doing paid up additions on a whole life policy, and
Mm-hmm.
we're maxing those out every year to the level before it hits the EBITDA tax. So we're maxing out, and then each year, starting next year, the way our policy is set up, our kids' policy can be 75% of our policy.
Yes.
So we will open a policy for each one of them each year
Mm-hmm.
and max their policy out as well. And then all of the policy's beneficiary is our family trust.
Uh-huh.
And so then if anything were to happen to any of us at any time, that money, that policy goes into the trust. And then it'll just create our own bank for our family for generations to come.
Absolutely love that. And as a part of the trust, I mean, you kind of creating the tax advantages as well, right?
Yes.
Especially in terms of the estate tax perception. It's income tax free, but I love what you're doing. Kudos for that. I'm a big proponent of infinite banking. I educate on that. I help people implement that as well. So tell me a little bit more about it. That how do you plan to use it? Are you plan to use it for your investing journey as well?
Yeah. So right now we're just building it up. Kind of like a 401k, we're putting
Yeah.
as much money away in it as we can without getting that EBITDA tax hit. So we're doing that, and we plan on doing that for probably 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So for right now, we're just looking at it like a really great savings account.
Right.
And then once we have enough built up, then we'll start utilizing it for probably everything, like our cars, our real estate, and paying ourselves back instead of having to rely on banks.
Yeah, and your kids are, growing. You could
Yeah.
use it for education. You could use it for real estate investments. And yeah, the leftover could be used for the retirement. So I love that you're doing that and coupled with the estate planning as well. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. That is really, really
Yeah.
helpful. So with that, we are going to go in the final section of our show, which is a rapid fire round. It's just some fun questions and,
Sure.
quick answers to that. So are you ready for the rapid fire?
Yeah, bring it on.
Thank you, Andrea. So my first question is that one of the biggest thing that you have taught to your kids and the generations, through your program, the podcast that you're doing, that you think is the most impactful for them?
I would say it's what we call our SIS budgeting system.
Uh-huh.
So it's savings, investing, stewardship, and spending.
Okay.
And so any money that they get, we make them break it up into those 4 categories as percentages. And the max that they're allowed to put in their spending is 50%. And then those other 3 categories, savings, investing, and stewardship, they choose what percentage they're breaking up into those buckets. And I think for us, it just teaches our kids, for one, don't spend all your money.
Right.
Which is huge. Only be a consumer to a certain extent. And then the other piece of it is they get to see that, if you put money aside into certain things, so like investing, for example, that's where our girls can make these hot cocoa cones. They're allowed to use their investing money to go buy the supplies. And then they have to replenish their investing money, and then they can make money with that money. So with it being there already and them having a bucket, they understand, I hope,
yes,
this is the goal, that if you put it aside and you break it out first, then you have the money. Or like they just did a fundraiser, and so for school, and they're like, oh, we need to look in our stewardship money and see how much we have. And they put all of it. They're like, we want to put all of it to our school fundraiser, And every time they do that, I'm like, okay, if we didn't save this, if we didn't put it aside, would you have that money?
Right.
And they're like, no, I would have spent it all, So to me, I think that's the biggest thing that we're teaching them.
100%. I mean, that kind of creating this habit to put it away, that's incredible. I love that. My next question to you is that you look like a very mindset oriented person. So that, one person, one coach, one book, or one thought, even sometimes one quote does that, right? So what is that has changed your mindset for good, that just changed the direction for you completely?
Yeah, that's easy. So it was a book that I read. The author is Garrett Gunderson, and it's called Killing Sacred Cows. And when I read that book, it is a financial literacy book, and it's also a mindset book. One of the biggest things that stuck out to me was scarcity versus abundance.
Absolutely.
And that was a concept no one had ever talked to me about. And I was definitely more on the scarcity wagon for most of my life. And I would say my whole entire family still is. And so to break free of that, like just with that book, I feel like helped me. And then he's a big proponent of the infinite banking as well. So that's where I learned about it and how to set up that whole system and just really plan for my future. So that book by far opened my eyes a lot.
Thank you for sharing that. Killing Sacred Cows. That's the book by Garrett Gunderson. I love him too. He's just incredible. Like you said, it's a mindset. It's about the strategy. It's about, again, that holistic perspective, which I always talk about, growing, preserving, protecting, and passing your generational wealth. Because, investors get stuck on a lot about what is the IRR, what is the returns, and, can I, at the max, maybe can I reach to the financial freedom? But, people like him, and I feel the same way that, there is just so much to educate, so much to pass to different, people who do not have this kind of time. They do not have this kind of exposure of people, of connections of people, going to the conferences or, just meeting different type of people. Every person I meet, including you, teaches me something incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that journey. Last question I'm going to ask is, what is the craziest thing, whether it's travel, whether it's with your kids, that you have done? It's just, you look back at it and you just like can't help laughing about it.
Oh, the craziest thing. That's a hard question. I'm not very crazy, I think. I feel like I'm
okay, what is the craziest thing that you would like to do then?
Ooh, that might be better.
Yeah.
I would like to live in a tropical place for at least a year of my life.
Nice.
So probably once the kids are all graduated
and
out of the house. But that's tricky too, because then it's like by that time our oldest might be having a family, so then we'd want to be around. But at some point we'll squeeze it in there. And
I'm sure that 1 year you will figure it out.
Yeah, for a year. So that's probably my craziest goal. Not too crazy, probably pretty realistic.
I'm getting a lot of visuals with you, right? When I, was going to have you on podcast and I learned about your childhood, I was imagining this little girl with a yellow helmet walking around with hammer. I shared that with you. And now I can just imagine you like a diva walking through the forest and tropical place, and it's raining, but take a lot of mosquito
Yes,
sprays.
right. Knowing me, I'll probably find a hotel to convert on some
I'm
tropical
sure you
island,
will
and
too.
then I'll be working the whole
On
time.
that note, we have come to the end of this conversation and its friendship. I look forward to continue it. How can the audience get in touch with you if they want to reach you?
Yeah, so you can visit my website, which is Invest with GWC,
Uh-huh.
stands for Generational Wealth Capital.
Mhm.
Or you can check out our kids podcast and listen to it with or without your kids. So it's raisemillionaires.com, or you can find it on any of the podcast channels. And then I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook just under my name.
Sure, and we will put all those links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much again being on my show. I have
Thank you for
enjoyed this
having me.
conversation and this out of the box strategy again.
Yes, have a great day.
Thank you so much. And listeners, if you got this out of the box attitude from Andrea, I think that is the biggest takeaway. And I would love you, if you have liked this episode, please share that with at least one person. And you know that we are doing our passive power hour where we have the live education for you. So do sign up. Every other Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central is when we are bringing in this live education for you. So I look forward to see you all there. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. Thank you so much, Andrea, again. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Think Outside the Stocks podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe. Madhvi is on a mission to change the financial trajectory of one family at a time, with 1,000 more to go. We hope you'll be a part of this vision. Please join our growing community, and to get your journey started, visit thinkoutsidethestocks.com to download your free guide on active income with passive real estate investments. If you learned something new, please share it with one person today. And if you have 60 seconds, please leave us an Apple review to help us reach more people like you. Tune in for the next episode.